Hi, I'm Steve Brown with Homewood Nursery and Garden Center for Triangle Gardener. Today we're going to talk a little bit about miniature container gardening, or container gardening with miniatures. Try to think of it as landscaping in a pot on a smaller scale. What am I talking about? Let's take a look. Over here we have a beautiful combination that was done by our Lisa Hayden here at Homewood. It's a great combination of textures, not so much color, but style. There's a lot of style in this container. This is a great example of what miniature gardening is all about. It's in a what's called a hypertufa container. There are very few actual plants in the container, but what it gives you back is a great look, very elegant style. We'll talk a little bit about plants in just a moment. Right now I want to talk about container selection. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the components of the containers, but now we're going to talk about the pots. What kind of container are you going to select? There are three basic things you want to consider when choosing a container for this kind of gardening. The first one is the size of the pot. The size of the pot is going to be very important in proportion to the plants that you want to use. Something very small like this one would be okay. It's a little bit shallow. The depth of the pot does matter. You want to consider depth for soil and root space. That does really matter a lot. The things that are most important for a small container, you want to consider that you don't put too many plants in there, because too many roots will compact and the plants will become stressed over a period of time and they won't do their best. Deeper is always better. But a shallow bowl like this would be very good for shallow-rooted plants, some of the smaller items, true dwarfs, miniatures, and only a few items, and use a lot of decor with a pot like this. Style is the next thing we want to talk about. What look am I going for with my miniature garden? Do I want a contemporary look? Do I want something a little more natural looking? Would I like something maybe a little more Victorian? The choice is up to you. There are so many options with containers. That's all we would need to say about containers right now. We're going to move on to the soil and the components of the soil. Let's take a look at that. Okay, we've talked a little bit about the containers. Now we're going to move on to soil. The kind of soil you want to use for these miniature gardens is not the same soil we would use for your average annual combination or for herb gardening. It's a different structure for different kinds of plants that have a woodier root base. So we want to use soil that's a little more coarse in texture, a little bit heavier, and will allow the roots to gently go through the pot without running to the bottom and circling around. The three components we usually add together to plant these miniature container gardens would be a combination of what we call soil enhancer, which is really finely ground pine bark that is composted. It's a very coarse combination. You can see that it's just shredded pine bark for the most part. It's been composted. It's not fresh pine bark, so that does make a difference for the plants. Another component is just a good organic soil mix. It is a potting soil mix, but it's a little bit heavier. It doesn't have any fertilizer in it. A very important note regarding all the soils is you don't ever want to use a fertilizer in a soil mix, or something like some of the famous mixes out there that have the fertilizer in them. That's a no-no for these plants. They don't like all that fertilizer. It's the wrong kind of fertilizer to use for these plants. This is just a basic organic fertilizer-free potting mixture. And then the third component would be, this is permatil, which is an expanded slate product. We use it to add a little density to the soil, a little more coarseness and weight to the soil. It holds the plants down a little bit better. An alternative for the permatil would be perlite, which is in the bag here. Perlite is the little white fluffy pearls that kind of look like styrofoam. That does the same thing for the plants that the permatil does. You'd mix these three together at about this ratio. This is about a 50-30-20 ratio, and that's the best combination you can use for most of these plants. Another way to go that we've discovered is just a regular mix of bonsai soil mix. That is about the same combination. It does a great job, and it's easier to manage. You don't have to mix it yourself. We're going to move on to plants now and talk about some of these little beauties and how we would use them in the containers. So now we're going to get to the great thing. We're going to talk a little bit about the plants now, all the different kinds of textures and colors we can use with the miniature container gardens. There are hundreds of choices for what you can use with your container gardens. your miniature container gardens. And just a few samples here. The major components we want to talk about with a miniature container garden, just like any container garden, the basic rules apply. There are your thrillers, which are your tall accents. You've got your fillers, which are going to be the smaller medium plants that fill the center areas. And then you've got your spillers. These are plants that spread across the ground or across the floor of the container, or maybe even spill over the side. So we've got your thrillers, your fillers, and your spillers. That's a great way to think of it for those three architectural elements of a miniature container garden. Lots to choose from, as we said. We'll start with the tall accents, which will be your thrillers. This is a miniature boxwood. It's been shaped into a cone. It will continue to grow slowly in an upright fashion. Still a small plant for a medium-sized container. Evergreen, of course, and it would just provide upright texture for any container use. With the containers we've already looked at a little bit. This is a new variety of Virginia pine. This is called Driscoll pine. It's a miniature Virginia pine. The native Virginia pine, of course, grows 60 to 70 feet tall. They're all over the area. This is a dwarf. It only gets about 1 foot tall and 1 foot wide. And we've used it in this container as sort of a bonsai tree style. Those are good examples of your thrillers. For fillers, we would look at a lot of different things for texture and color. All of these are conifers here. Here you have a new variety of juniper. This is called all gold. This is one of the many kinds of false cypress or hinoki cypress. This is called butterball. Very slow growing, only grows about a ½ inch per year, and will stay in a very tight little bun, about 6 to 12 inches tall and wide over a long period of time. Now that's just one of the many examples of the miniature conifers. You can also get into the broadleaf evergreens like the Scotiaceae osmanthus. Over here we have a dwarf holly. Many other options here. We have a cotoneaster. This is Strib's Findling cotoneaster. Those would all be good options too. If you don't like the ferny texture of conifers, you can always move into something like that. Then you have your spillers, which are really a great option if you're filling space across the top of a pot. This is a dwarf wire vine. This is a dwarf dianthus. This is a very cute little dianthus. I like this a lot. Many types of stone crop or sedum. You see these everywhere these days. They're very good for covering. They're all evergreen. And this one is probably my favorite. If you want a little flower power in your miniature container garden, this is great. This is a rhodium. It's a variety called, I've forgotten the name, but the variety is called Flora Pleno. This will bloom all summer with these cute little pink flowers. Fills a nice little space, doesn't get any taller than this. It's not evergreen, it'll disappear for winter, but it'll come right back up in spring. Great choices. The other thing you don't want to forget when you're putting in a container garden like this, think about bulbs. Everybody loves spring with spring bulbs popping up everywhere. What if you had a few bulbs popping up in your miniature container garden? They of course would have to be the minor bulbs, what we call the minor bulbs. These are the snowdrops, the crocuses, things that are less than 4 inches tall with very diminutive flowers, but they offer a lot of color for spring for a container of any kind, but especially for these little miniature landscapes. They just add a tremendous amount of texture and color for that brief period in spring, and then they'll go back to sleep and they'll sit there and wait until next spring and come up again. The other thing we didn't cover were accessories. Lots of different things you can do to accessorize your little gardens. We have little selections of moss here. We collected these just across the nursery from the base of the pine trees. Moss is everywhere. It's easy to find. It's pretty much free. Don't be afraid to walk around your garden and discover some moss. Little baby pine cones we picked up from the pines. A little hemlock tree that we have close to the nursery here. Great little things you can settle around the plants. Driftwood, any kind of wood, any kind of bark, chunks of wood, lichen that's attached to bark looks great with these containers. As you can see, so many things to choose from. So whatever you do, don't forget to have fun. Explore your garden and surroundings and find unique little things to add to your miniature container garden. Visit your local garden center and ask for details. In any way, enjoy your miniature container garden. For Triangle Gardener and for Homewood Nursery and Garden Center, I'm Steve Brown.